Hello, imaginary friends. Make sure that you like, share, subscribe, and comment on whatever you like or don't like about the story. But without further ado, here is the Christmas Spirit.
Leonard Fitzgerald had never celebrated Christmas. Not once. Though it wasn't because he hated it or because he was protesting the commercialization of a once pure celebration. He simply hadn't known that Christmas existed. Which was ironic, because the island he lived on was covered in mostly pine trees and was winter all year round. Winter without Christmas. God only knows why there were humans on this island, because in addition to the impossibly cold Christmasless December, there were polar bears who fought viciously to expand their territory, cave trolls who organized a government and taxed everyone to death, and narwhals who crossed swords with anyone who went into their waters. But the worst part about the island was the ice dragon. He mostly stayed out of everyone's business, unless it was about Christmas or fires. He hated fire about as much as Christmas. So Leonard grew up without baking sugar cookies, singing carols to the penguins, or opening presents. He was completely unaware of the fat man in a sleigh gifting good children toys and clothing, two things which Leonard needed badly. The dragon kept Father Christmas far away from his island ever since their epic battle one December 24th, maybe about a century ago. This was before Leonard's time, so he knew nothing of this. That is, until one day, while Leonard's family harvested their ice turnips, disgusting veggies that grow in the ice, his big sister fell backwards into the snow. She didn't get up right away, so he thought something might be wrong. When she fanned her arms and legs, he knew something was. He ran over just as she stood up. "You okay, Marcy?"
"Never better. Look, it's an angel,"
she said, pointing at her imprint in the snow. Having never seen an angel before, Leonard had no idea what he was looking at.
"It's beautiful, but what's an angel?" "Part of the Christmas spirit."
There was a sparkle in her eye, and her cheeks flushed. Before Leonard questioned her further, something roared in the distance. Leonard jumped, and Marcy turned white as a ghost. She ran forward, kicking the snow, completely destroying her angel.
"Help me, Leonard!"
Even though it hurt him to see the angel destroyed, he didn't hesitate. Once they were done, they waited. And waited. And waited, but nothing happened. No matter how many times people warned about the dangers of the dragon, nothing ever happened when Leonard was around. Sometimes he wondered if the dragon was as bad as everyone claimed. Or if he was even real.
"I shouldn't have done that,"
Marcy said on the way home. "But it was beautiful," Leonard mumbled. Marcy grabbed Leonard's shoulders and spun him to face her.
"Don't you ever do something so foolish, you hear me?"
He nodded reluctantly. Marcy relaxed. "But only if you tell me what Christmas is." Marcy covered his mouth.
"Shh, don't say that word."
Leonard shoved her hand away.
"Why not? Are the polar bears gearing up to come after me? Are the trolls writing me a ticket? No. Nothing ever happens."
Marcy frowned and tried to say something, but stopped short. Then tried again, but clapped her mouth shut again. She ended up grabbing his arm and leading him home. When they were inside the creaky old shack with the rest of the family, she hissed in his ear.
"I'll tell you after everyone goes to sleep."
Leonard smiled. He was looking forward to it. That night, when the family had drifted off to dreamland, they all slept in the same room to stay warm, Marcy rolled over to Leonard.
"Christmas is a celebration,"
she went on to whisper, "about gifts, the hope it brings, the fun, the music, everything." Leonard was a bit skeptical about it all.
"So you're telling me that because a baby was born, people give presents and food and stuff? For free? And some guy, a stranger with reindeer, brings you whatever you want because you wrote him a letter?"
Marcy shrugged.
"Yeah, I guess so. Too bad we'll never see Christmas."
She rolled over and stared at the ceiling.
"How nice it would be to get a gift."
Leonard scrunched his nose.
We don't celebrate because of the dragon."
Marcy spun so fast that it startled her little brother.
"Yes, now we must never ever speak about this again. No one speaks about it because of him, not even the polar bear warriors. I even heard the trolls won't send any letter that's addressed anywhere near the North Pole. So..."
She ran her fingers across her lips, like she was zipping it closed.
"Well, then how do you know about it?"
"Janie told me, and then I asked Mum, and she confirmed it, and I've never talked about it since. Except with Joey. And Ty. And Nadine."
"And now me,"
Leonard said with a grin.
"Yes, but seriously."
Did the dragon ever attack when you spoke about Christmas before?
No, but
Leonard rolled his eyes.
seriously, please don't talk about Christmas anymore, okay? No matter how amazing it sounds or how warm it makes you feel or...
She let out a sigh.
Christmas makes you feel warm, Leonard said, stifling a laugh.
This was too much. Typically, since no fires were allowed, a family of up to 7 could hire a rather large walrus to keep themselves warm by laying on his blubber, like a warm waterbed. Or they could convince a patrol of polar bears that an enemy troop of puffins was planning on using their home as headquarters for their army, and let the polar bears pack in and use them as blankets and mattresses. But that all cost money, or at the least convincing some puffins to play a prank on the serious polar bears. So, for a family like theirs, the feeling of warmth was almost as impossible as celebrating Christmas.
Yes, Christmas makes you feel warm,
Marcy said.
It took a while, but now every time I even think about it. But no, just don't talk about it, all right?
All right, fine,
Leonard said. But the nights following, he and Marcy couldn't talk about anything but Christmas. Everything she knew, everything she'd heard, everything she'd want for Christmas, everything. And to Leonard's great surprise, that warmth Marcy talked about began happening to him, even on those cold nights, which was every night. And when the days began feeling too cold, he'd begin talking about Christmas, and both of them felt warm. After a few months of imagining Christmas, Marcy crawled to Leonard early in the morning before anyone else was awake and whispered to him,
It's December 24th, you know what that means?
Tomorrow is Christmas?
he said, his eyes barely open, but his smile bigger than it had ever been.
Merry Christmas Eve,
Marcy said, smiling back at her little brother. At that moment, Leonard decided that he'd make Christmas happen for Marcy. He wasn't sure it would work out to be a perfect Christmas, but he was going to try. He'd write this Santa a letter explaining how Marcy was an amazing sister and how she deserved anything she wanted. And just in case that didn't work, he had his doubts, he would personally make her a Christmas gift. A while back, Marcy mentioned that she would love a toy penguin. She was smitten with those flightless birds, so Leonard would whittle her one. Yes, this would be the year Marcy would get her Christmas. After dark, Leonard ventured out to the forest with his letter addressed to Santa and his pocket knife. Since there were no fires allowed anywhere on the island, finding wood was as easy as finding snow in this winter wonderland. There were branches here and fallen trees there, but none of them were right. He picked through the oaks, the maples, but when he came across a sycamore, his chest and hands felt as warm as if he were talking about Christmas. He broke off a piece, sat down, and began to whittle. A few polar bear patrols skated by, but a young boy with a folding pocket knife was not worth their time. Before long, a penguin was taking shape. Some cave trolls in some very fine suits sauntered by with their glasses and papers, barely even noticing the boy until he cried out. One stopped and eyed the carving. His bluish-greyish skin flushed a little, and he pushed his glasses farther up his bulbous nose. Leonard offered the letter.
I thought that since you guys control the mail, you could, take this?
The troll hummed with a closed mouth and shook its head vigorously. I cannot accept that contraband, silly boy, it said loudly. The other trolls laughed, but then he leaned in. Slide it underneath the back door of the troll post office. He fiddled with his glasses again as he talked loudly about taxes and whittled toys. Before he left, he winked at Leonard. Remember the back door. He then joined his other cave troll politicians as they continued on their way. Leonard went back to it with a smile on his face. It seemed like nothing would stop him from giving Marcy a Christmas. Her first Christmas. When he whittled the wood down to a penguin figurine, his excitement refused to be bottled any longer. He jumped into the air, and when he came down, he slipped onto his back. He was not hurt, and kept laughing. Without thinking, he made a snow angel. He waved his arms and legs, and a happy tear came to his eye.
What are you doing, young one?
A deep, icy voice said. Leonard froze. From the ground he could see nothing, but he heard the deep breathing of whatever had just spoken. He turned ever so slowly and came face to face with the ice dragon. It was as tall and long as 3 houses lined up together. Its scales were a variation of pale and dark blue. The long spikes, or were they horns, on its head were white as snow. It took a step forward, and its long, sharp claws disappeared under the snowdrifts, but none of its features. were as terrifying as its pale blue eyes.
You are real.
Leonard said.
Aye, that I am.
The dragon stood on its hind legs. Now it looked as big as a glacier.
Has your kind forgotten who rules this island?
He dropped down onto all fours again. The ground shook.
Yes, no.
Leonard said, getting to his feet.
I've just never seen you before, that's all, and it's hard to believe in something you've never seen, but I believe in you now.
I've rested too long.
The dragon said. He unfurled his massive wings, which sent a gust so hard that it knocked Leonard to the ground.
Perhaps I need to remind this island who I am.
No, please, Leonard cried, thinking of his family and the shack they lived in. It would not withstand anything this dragon would throw at it.
They know you. They believe in you.
Then why have you made a snow angel?
The dragon leaned in. Its eye was as big as Leonard.
And why do you hold a letter addressed to the North Pole?
I'm sorry,
he offered. The dragon snapped its mouth shut a few times, its teeth crashing together.
A snow angel is not the worst offense.
He marched forward and circled the boy.
But the letter...
He let the words hang in the air.
Oh, please, leave my family alone,
Leonard pleaded. He still held out hope that he could give Marcy a Christmas, and he didn't want this dragon ruining it for her.
Me! Punish me, please!
Aye, that I will do.
The dragon reached out with its claws and grabbed the boy.
This will remove your Christmas spirit!
He pushed the boy's mouth open and blew icy breath down his throat. Leonard had never been so cold. It reached down into his stomach and ran out to his fingertips. It froze his legs and toes, but when it got to his heart, a pain burst through his body. The letter, the real cause for his punishment, fluttered from his hands and floated away on the breeze. The dragon set Leonard down. He felt nothing. No warmth, no cold, only a void. He wobbled on the spot. The dragon grinned.
Merry Christmas, boy!
He laughed as he flew. The air was filled with the sound of crunching snow. At first he thought it was a polar bear troop, but the steps were erratic and not in rhythm. Plus the air didn't smell like wet dog and metal. Suddenly, snow was flying all over the place. Not like a blizzard, but like an attack. The snow and cold hadn't bothered Leonard for some time now, but just to be safe, he dove into a fir tree, settling on his belly, out of sight. He could only see about a foot high through the branches, so his limited view only allowed him to see curly-toed boots skipping and running round as snowballs rained down and laughter rose in the sky.
Hey, wait a minute,
Someone said. The snowballs stopped, and so did the running and the laughter. Leonard held his breath. The branches burst open.
Surprise!
Leonard cried out. These people, the whole group of them, laughed when their heads ducked into the undergrowth of the tree. They were all young, like him. Much like their boots, their coats were colourful, their hoods were stuffed with what looked like polar bear fur. Leonard searched each and every one of the happy, smiling faces round him until his eyes landed on her, the brown-eyed, red-haired girl. Suddenly his breath was gone again.
Hi,
she said, and then she smiled. Leonard's heart pounded harder than it had ever pounded before. I really like your hair, he said in a deep voice that was not his own. His kindness took him by surprise. Why'd I say that?
thank you.
The girl said, and flashed another smile.
What's your name?
Leonard's throat was suddenly as dry as a desert. He coughed to clear it.
Leonard?
He said. His voice sounded strange to himself.
Oh, that's a fine name. Leonard. I like that.
The smile returned, and for some strange reason Leonard began feeling a little cold on the tips of his fingers.
My name's Len.
Leonard was quiet. Surprisingly, he wasn't trying to be rude. He was just saying her name over and over again in his head, so that he'd remember it. The others went back to playing. Snowballs filled the skies once again.
Well, quiet, Leonard. Would you like to join the fight?
Len asked. The fun of the snowball fight was foreign to Leonard. He scowled like an old man, but before he could reject the invitation, a snowball burst on his chest. Leonard stared at the remnants of the snow sticking to his coat.
That girl threw a snowball at me.
Len laughed.
Come on now, throw one at me. I'll give you a free shot.
Leonard shrugged and didn't move.
Have you never had a snowball fight? Probably,
Leonard said.
Probably.
Len laughed.
I don't believe you, because if you'd ever have a snowball fight, you'd remember.
Leonard went into a long explanation about how he remembered but didn't see the point of it. Then he was hit with another snowball. Lynn laughed again, and something sparked inside Leonard. He almost smiled. He pulled up some snow. I'll show you if I've never had a snowball fight. He hoped that sounded cool. He launched it at Lynn, and it fell short. Really short. Lynn raised her eyebrows in a challenge. For the next 20 minutes, Leonard got hit a lot more than Lynn, but they battled, and he gave her a few hits in return. The two breathed heavily and stared at each other.
You want to have more fun?
Lynn said. Leonard's initial reaction was a clear and forceful no, but before he said anything, he paused. Did he want to join them again? Something in him said no again, but something else, something warm, something desperate, whispered, yes. The girl raised her eyebrows, saying, well?
I think I will join you.
As he said the words, something inside Leonard shifted, like a weight being lifted. A lifting that had begun when he had thrown the first snowball.
Great,
Lynn said.
come on.
She offered a hand for him to take, and when she pulled him forward, that warm feeling inside Leonard bloomed in his chest, even whilst the cold bit at his hands and feet. It was the most he'd felt since.
Come on,
Lynn cried, and everyone began running, even Leonard. He hadn't thought to run, it just happened. The next thing he knew, everyone round him was laughing. Running was one of the things Leonard hated, you know, but not this time, not now. This was joy. He and Lynn kept catching each other's eyes as the trees and snow flew by in a blur. Her smile was the most genuine, the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen, and he wanted her to smile forever. He wasn't sure how long they ran, but it didn't feel long. But the next thing he knew, they were all falling backwards into the deep snow, just as his sister had done some time ago. The blue sky was beautiful. The cold crept up his arms and legs.
Snow angels!
Lynn called from somewhere close to Leonard. He swung his arms and legs. Laughter floated up to the trees from all these children. The kids started popping up from the ground when they had finished. He got up too, and admired the congregation of snow angels round.
I really like yours,
Lynn said from his side.
Thanks, I like it too. You ready for what's next?
Leonard screamed. The wind blew past his ears, muting every sound except for his cries. He careened down the hill, icy snow flying in his face, but it didn't bother him. His new friends cheered as he sped full throttle down the mountain on one of their sleds. Finally, mercifully, He crashed into the soft snow barrier they'd built at the bottom of the hill. When he stood up, everyone cheered, and a rush he'd never felt before burst from him in the form of a hoorah! He tore up the hill and sped back down again. And again. Laughing, his friends crashed and hollered and flew past. A few times Lynn took his hand to help him up the hill. Sometimes he took her hand and pulled her up the hill. The warmth in his chest was burning hotter, even though the cold reached nearly everywhere else. He barely even paid any mind to the cold or even the warmth any longer. He was in the moment, and nothing was going to take him away from this. He had never laughed as hard as when they all piled together on a huge sled and went down the hill. The snowball of sledders crumbled when they came to the edge of the track, and everyone was thrown in all directions, laughing and happily screaming. When the joy calmed down, they slowly came back together. Some of them gathered wood, whilst others pulled mugs and bags out of their backpacks.
What are they doing?
Leonard asked.
Do you want to make some hot cocoa?
Lynn said. Not knowing what hot cocoa was, Leonard looked on in horror as one of them started flicking sparks onto the wood piled up.
He's starting a fire? Of course, how else will we make the cocoa hot?
Something then struck Leonard, a memory, or a feeling. It was that eye. Everything came back in a flash. The dragon would come and punish them. The warmth in his chest shrunk so quickly Leonard lost his breath.
No,
He said, almost pleading. We've got to stop them! As he rushed round and urged them to stop, Lynn stepped forward.
It's all right, Leonard. Look at me. Listen, there's a dragon.
I know, she said,
Everything's going to be okay.
her smile never leaving her face.
I don't think you do. I thought I knew.
Leonard tried again to tell her, but she excused herself to help the cocoa makers. So he ran to another person in the group, but the man said the same thing. Everything's gonna be okay, buddy. Leonard tried to tell others, but everyone repeated the same platitude. If only they knew about the dragon and how terrible he was. But they were all going about their work, making cocoa and building a fire. There were even a few making more snow angels. They were doomed. Well, Leonard could do one of two things. Abandon them to the punishment of the dragon, or stick round and join in it.
Hey, Leonard,
Lynn said.
you ready for your cocoa?
She held up a mug pouring steam and topped with whipped cream. Against his better judgment, against the screaming in his head, he chose to stay. The warmth in his chest sparked anew when he took the cocoa. Night fell, and the whole group surrounded the fire, singing songs and drinking the warm, sweet drink. Leonard sat across from Lynn. It was beautiful how the light danced on her face. He was not singing. He hadn't smiled for some time. His knee bounced and his jaw clenched. He knew it would come. He knew they were all doomed. The dragon would be there soon. The waiting was almost unbearable.
You seem distracted,
Lynn said. Leonard shook his head and took a sip from his mug so that he didn't risk the chance of his voice breaking if he denied it. Lynn sat next to him.
Lies do not become you.
What does that mean?
It means, number one, you're a terrible liar. And number two, you make a funny face while you're lying.
She giggled.
Stop worrying and have a good time.
He almost let his guard down. But that's when the roar shook the forest. Everyone stopped what they were doing. The woods went silent, except for the popping of the fire.
I know,
Leonard breathed. But no one else looked scared, not even Lynn. She looked happy. The roar came again, much closer, this time accompanied by loud footfalls. Still, no one moved. Not one even said a word. The dragon was now just outside the light of the fire. Well, someone had to do something. Leonard jumped into action. He grabbed a branch and faced off with the dragon, just as it came into the campsite. His branch was like a toothpick to the massive dragon. It trembled no more than a foot away from the monster's teeth. "Stop," Leonard said. His voice shook just as much as his stick.
You're not welcome here.
The dragon's deep laugh crumpled any courage Leonard had.
What makes you think you can tell me where I can go on my island?
Leonard had nothing to say.
I have a duty to uphold.
The dragon growled.
A fire, singing, and I believe I saw snow angels on the way in. These are all cause for punishment.
Leonard glanced over his shoulder at everyone standing round the fire. He couldn't see them, but they were probably as scared as he was.
But you already know that, don't you, young one? You've already had your punishment. You drank it up.
Leonard's head hurt. The warmth in his chest was fading. Even the cold was dying away. He was losing feeling. The dragon laughed.
No, not again,
Leonard thought. He didn't want it to happen again, but even more so he didn't want it to happen to Lynn or to the others. The dragon moved forward, but Leonard moved in the way again. Surprise was written on the dragon's face. You leave them alone, Leonard said. He imagined it was fierce and powerful, but in reality it kind of squeaked out, but affected the dragon. Now he was angry.
You will move out of my way, or I will eat you.
I'm not moving, he said to the dragon. Get out of here, guys, he said over his shoulder. I'll delay him as long as I can. The dragon was perplexed.
You're nothing more than a mouthful. I have eaten baby seals bigger than you.
That doesn't bother me, Leonard lied. He was incredibly bothered and frightened, but he still held his ground. He would not move, and the longer he stood there, the braver he felt. The dragon inched forward.
I hate the taste of rebel humans, but I will do what I must.
He opened his mouth wide, his fangs were longer than any sword Leonard had ever seen, his tongue and gums were blue, and his breath was horrid. Human brains are funny things. In times of great life-ending peril, some of us have strange final thoughts. Leonard had such a thought before the dragon gobbled him up. He really needs to brush his teeth. A strange thought, yes. However, this was not his final thought, because before the dragon could bite down, the friends that Leonard was defending set off a firework. It screeched all the way up to the sky, which made the dragon pause. Then, when it popped, a huge red ball of flames bloomed, giant and beautiful above them.
No. It can't be.
The dragon growled. 3 more fireworks screamed into the sky. The dragon shrank back. Lynn grabbed Leonard and pulled him back to the fire as the ice dragon cowered in the snow. What's happening? Leonard asked. We're calling in some help. She pointed to the sky where a huge sled was streaking across the sky straight towards them. It was being pulled by eight reindeer? Leonard shook his head, trying to clear it. That looks like... I can't even say it. That's my boss, Lynn said. That's Santa Claus. The jolly man in the sled let out a ho-ho-ho as more fireworks shot off into the air. The dragon went mad, biting trees and scratching the ground as more and more fireworks went off.
I've beaten him before. I'll beat him again.
The dragon took off in the sky straight for the sled. The battle was epic. Leonard and his friends watched in awe and silence. The dragon shot sheets of white and blue ice from his terrible mouth, and Santa answered with his own magic. Red sparks, like fireworks, stopped the dragon's breath in its tracks. Leonard's friends shot off more fireworks, adding to the colourful show in the sky. The reindeer pulled the sled here and there, making impossible turns, and the dragon moved like a snake in the sky, twisting and spinning here and there, but Santa got him in the end. He had a net launcher attached to his sleigh, and when the ice dragon was stunned by a firework, Santa let the net fly and captured the serpent. The friends all round Leonard cheered, and the sleigh flew in loopy-loops with the dragon captured and trailing behind before landing. Everyone ran to Santa when he landed, cheering and laughing and congratulating each other. Everyone but Leonard. He watched from a distance as Santa praised everyone for a job well done.
After many, many years, we've finally captured the serpent.
He raised his hands high, and the cheers rang through the forest. The dragon harumphed from inside the net.
This year, the island will celebrate Christmas again.
Excitement flowed through Leonard. Not only was his chest warm, but his arms and legs and fingers. He thought of his family. He thought of warmth. He thought of presents. He cheered and jumped into the air. When he landed, the forest was quiet, and everyone looked at him. His breath caught in his throat when Santa pushed through the crowd and came near. He was a big man, both in height and round the middle. He bent down on one knee so that he was almost eye to eye with Leonard.
Leonard Fitzgerald,
he said in his deep voice. Yes, Leonard said weakly.
I believe you sent me this, or at least you tried to.
Santa reached deep into his pocket and pulled out an envelope addressed to the North Pole, written in Leonard's hand. Leonard was speechless.
Last year you lost the Christmas spirit. At the same time you lost this letter to me.
Santa flipped the envelope round.
It's a shame, because you had only just found the Christmas spirit when it was taken from you.
Leonard stammered, but Santa continued.
But it seems to me that you've found it again, just like I found your letter.
Leonard nodded.
Do you know why I returned to this island?
Leonard shook his head.
Why, I received your letter, of course.
Santa laughed. And yes, it was a ho-ho-ho.
Your request for your sister was the purest Christmas spirit I have seen in some time. It's why the dragon wanted to steal it from you. What he meant for evil backfired in the worst possible way. You see, any letter sent to me with a fraction of the spirit you had will always find its way north.
All the friends Leonard had made nodded and said yep or aha with some variation. Santa went on.
So, when one of my elves put this on my desk, I knew right then I would defeat the dragon. Because of you.
Are you saying...
And do you know why I hadn't visited your island for so many years?
Leonard shook his head.
It was because the dragon, that slippery serpent, took away the Christmas spirit. How many of your friends or family members have the Christmas spirit in them?
Leonard could think of only one, and the way he had treated Marcy. He wouldn't be surprised if she had lost her Christmas spirit, too.
His power grew as mine diminished. The more he pushed my spirit away, the easier it was to hold me off. I tried to come back, I truly did, but it was impossible. That is,
he added with a twinkling in his eye,
until your letter came. If you hadn't believed, if you hadn't felt what you did, I would have lost to that worm.
Really? Santa nodded.
Even the smallest bit of faith can make all the difference. Now, will you do me a favor? I need help with spreading the Christmas cheer.
Anything, Leonard said.
Seeing that I'm a little busy with this old snake,
he gestured to the dragon,
I may not be able to make all my deliveries. And since it's Christmas Eve...
It's Christmas Eve? Santa nodded again.
I need some help delivering these gifts. Will you help me?
Leonard walked a little taller on the way home. Santa had given him a red hat with a little white ball on the end, a new red coat just like his, and a bag full of gifts for his family and anyone he passed on the way. Before he left, Lynn appeared. So you work for Santa? Does that mean you're an elf? She nodded and took down her hood to show off her pointed ears. Her red hair fell down past her shoulders. As they talked, the other elves packed up their fireworks and sleds and mugs. Will I ever see you again? He asked. Sure, I get Christmas off. So they made plans to meet up the following day after the gifts were handed out. Leonard smiled and readjusted the bag over his shoulder. There was so much to look forward to. But he had a job to do. He came across some of those polar bear soldiers, but instead of patrolling, they were using their armor to sled down the hill. Leonard stopped and pulled a few gifts from the bag and handed them out to the bears. The bears grunted, but in a nice bear way. They had found the Christmas spirit. Later down the road, he ran across some trolls having a snowball fight. He also gave them gifts from Santa. They took them reluctantly, and when Leonard asked what the problem was with free gifts from Santa, they said they were trying to figure out if the gifts were a tax write-off. Nevertheless, they had found the Christmas spirit. Well, sort of. Finally, Leonard got home. Everyone was sleeping. Leonard knew exactly what to do. He built a fire in the old fireplace. The family woke up to a warm house for the first time in forever. But when they really came to, they rushed to put the fire out. But Leonard's face, his happy, joyous face, stopped them in their tracks. He told them that everything had changed. He explained about the dragon and how he'd turned his heart to ice, and how he was very sorry, but then added everything about the elves and Santa. It had been quite the night. Then, when he was finished, he handed out all the gifts. There were presents for his parents, all his siblings, and even himself. Marcy unwrapped a penguin toy and just about burst from crying. They roasted some of the turnips over the fire, which was terrible, but they didn't care. It was a warm meal. They went to bed as a family in a warm house for the first time ever. Leonard lay awake most of the night, thinking of everything that had happened. But the main thought that kept him awake and excited was seeing Lynn the next day. The end. And happy Christmas.
Hey, if you made it this far, thank you so much. I hope that you enjoyed my story. And if you did, I would love to hear a comment. But if you didn't, I would love to hear that comment too, because it pushes us out into the algorithm so that more people can see this. And we would like to get out there. And if you like content like this, original stories, interviews with authors and agents, then please consider subscribing. It's free. And it just takes a click. If you want notifications, you can click that too, and then you'll know every time that we put out a video. We would love to have you on this journey. We're trying to get published. That's the whole purpose of this thing, but we're also sharing a lot of our stories so that we can keep our craft going. So if you like it, please let me know. If you like this stuff, please subscribe. And if you were an angel, a snow angel, you would share this with a bunch of people that you know would also like. So please do that. If you have time, we have some more stories. Here would be one here, maybe one here, maybe on both sides, maybe one right over my face. Maybe it would be better if my face was covered. I don't know. But anyway, click on these videos, share them with people. We got tons of stuff. We got tons of Christmas, Halloween, regular stories. We have poems. Check them out. And I'm done ranting because this video is too long. So share, like, subscribe, everything. Ah!